We are on lesson 13, which is on simple interest. So we're actually going to change up the routine a little bit here and using a different formula. So everything else up to this point has been using our part equals percent times whole formula. However, when we are calculating interest, we are going to be using a different formula, which you see off to the right. So before we go through that, let's look at our key terms. It says simple interest is an interest earned or paid on the original sum of money that was invested or borrowed. And principal is the amount of money invested or borrowed. So a lot of times, for examples like this, is if you buy a house or a car, you are usually taking out some kind of loan from a bank. That loan, that money or principal that you borrow is going to gain interest. The bank is going to charge you extra money for borrowing their money. That's what interest is. You can also earn interest by keeping your money that you have in a special account so that it earns more money over time. So those are the couple things that we're going to look at. When we talk about solving for interest, we're going to be using our formula of interest equals our principal amount times our rate and times time. Time would be how long you're going to leave it in there or how long you have to pay it off. Now, time has to be, so we're going to put a little note here, time has to always be in years. Okay, so if it gives you months, we have to change it up a little bit. And we're going to look at an example like that. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. It says Larry invests $100 in a savings plan. The plan pays 4.5% interest each year on his $100 account balance. How much money will Larry earn in interest after 3 years and after 5 years? All right. Our rate is always going to be the value that is written as a percent. Our rate is always going to be the percent. Okay. How much is invested or borrowed is always going to be the principal. Okay. And then time should be a more obvious one. Okay, time is going to be either years, months, days, something of that nature. Okay, so remember how we've always set up our problems. We're going to write our formula I equals P times R times T. And when you write your T, whenever you're writing a T in a formula, my recommendation is to put a little swoop at the bottom so it doesn't look like a plus sign. So we're setting up our formula, and just like with our percent formula, we're going to set up a cheat sheet off to the side. And I'm actually going to copy this for later. All right, so we are being asked how much in interest. So interest is I, so that's what I'm finding. My principal, how much they invested, $100. My rate, 4.5% or 4.5%. Just like in any other problem, we have to change our percentage into a decimal to get rid of that percent symbol. So I'm going to move my decimal 2 spaces to the left, divide by 100, or type it into my calculator. It's going to tell me 0.045. And the time for this first part is 3 years. And remember, time always has to be in years, so we are all set because it already told us years. So let's go ahead and plug everything in for the 3 years. So x equals 100 times 0.045 times 3. And I can just put all that in my calculator and multiply it out to get my answer. I'm going to get 13.5 or $13.50. Now, I'm going to go back up. It asked me 2 parts to this question, so I'm going to separate my paper in another section. I, P, R, T. This time, it's asking me about 5 years, so same exact values for everything besides the time. and I'm going to plug it in. X equals 100 times 0.045 times 5 this time. Multiply it all out. You should get 22.5 or $22.50. Okay, now it says, how can you find the balance of Larry's account at the end of 5 years? Well, if he started with $100 and it gained $22.5, I'm just going to add those values together, and that would be his total balance in the account. So 100 plus 22.5. $122.50 is what he has in the account currently. All right, next page. So this time it says, find the balance of a savings account at the end of 10 years if the interest earned each year is 7.5% and the principal is $500. So I'm gonna have you pause the video, try this one on your own. Then when you're all set, unpause the video and check your work. All right, your setup should be the same as what we've talked about. It says 10 years. I am finding the interest. My rate is my percent. They tell me 7.5%. And my principal, $500. So X, 500. 7.5%, remember you need to change that to a decimal point, 0.075, and time 10. So plug everything in, multiply. When you multiply everything out, 375. But let's go back and just make sure we've answered all parts of the question. So it says, find the balance of a savings account at the end of 10 years. If the interest earned each year is 7.5%, the principal is $500. So it wants the balance of the savings account. So the total balance, meaning I need to do one more step, which is add what we started with what we've earned. So now, starting at $500, without putting anything else in there, just from leaving the money in, it's gone up to $875. Okay, let's go down to the next one. So now we're going to look at what happens when we have time that is not given in a year. So it says a $1,000 savings bond earns simple interest at a rate of 3% each year. Interest is paid at the end of every month. How much interest will the bond have earned after 3 months? Okay, so $1,000 savings bond means that's how much was invested. We want the interest at a rate of 3% per year. But this time it asks us how much it's earned after 3 months. So let's set up our paper just like we usually do. Our formula and our cheat sheet. I'm going to go ahead and plug everything in. So we're finding the interest. Our principal is $1,000. Our rate, 3%. Let's change it to a decimal, 0.03. And our time, 3 months. Well, how many months are in a year? 12. So we're just going to divide it by 12. We can leave it as 3/12, or we can simplify it to 1/4. Either one you use in your problem will give you the same exact answer. Let's plug it in. X equals 1,000 times, that's 10,000. Times 0.03 times 1/4. We should get 7.5. So $7.50 is the amount of interest earned after only 3 months. All right, let's go to the next page. So let's look at an example now where we're not just solving for interest. It says Mrs. Williams wants to know how long it will take an investment of $450 to earn $200 in interest if the yearly interest rate is 6.5%. Okay, so let's set everything up, formula and cheat sheet. And let's identify all of our pieces. So it says investment of $450. So whatever they're investing or borrowing is always the principal. It's going to earn $200 in interest. And it says the interest rate is 6.5%. They want to know how long it will take. Well, how long is the amount of time? So this time, we're going to be looking for t. So t is x. Rate is 6.5%, but I have to change that, 0.065. Principal would be 450, and interest is 200. So I cannot always just think about how I'm going to multiply everything together. That's why it's really important to set up your formula and set up your cheat sheet to plug everything in the correct spot. So 200 equals 450 times 0.065 times x. Now, I'm going to do what I can on one side before I move anything. So I'm just going to bring the 200 down. I'm going to multiply 450 times 0.065. I get a decimal value of 29.25x. This is 29.25 times x, so I have to do the opposite, which is division, to move it away from that side. So opposite side, opposite operation. I'm going to divide to get my answer, write the whole decimal. So 6.837606838. And I'm just going to round it to the nearest year. So I'm going to say about 7 years it would take. Let's go on to the next one. It says a $1,500 loan has an annual interest rate of 4.25% on the amount borrowed. How much time has elapsed if the interest is now $127.50? I'm going to have you pause the video and try this one on your own. When you're all set, please unpause the video and check your work. Write your interest, your principal, rate, and you are finding time. So x 0.0425, 1,500, 127.5. When you go through and solve, you're multiplying on one side first before you move. 63.75 is what you should get, and divide both sides by that value. Right, you're going to end up getting a nice number, 2. So this would be 2 years. Okay, that's all for this lesson. Good luck on your homework.